Often I'm asked what the difference is between writing and narrative design, and so here's my attempt. I've heard some narrative designer, it was in a GDC talk, one that escapes me the title at the moment, but she described the difference as writing is the story from the character's perspective and narrative design is the narrative as it is delivered to the player. So the narrative from the player perspective, so how we're receiving the story. So examples of work in writing are, of course, writing the scripts, writing guidance lines, which is if a character needs to say, I think I should look over there, or maybe the key is in that bottom drawer. So sort of helping the player through. Optional content, which we have a lot of in Control, anything from audio logs to video to documents in the world, and item descriptions. These are the realm of writers, though that's not to say, for example, we have some of our narrative designers at Remedy actually review the scripts and give feedback, or make comments or apply edits or things like that. So the two definitely go hand in hand. And I would say that you would be a stronger writer if you had narrative design skills, and you would definitely be a great narrative designer if you have writing skills. Both need very strong communication skills in terms of writing, but also I would even argue doing designs and writing documents and things like that. And that's a lot of my realm. So that's optional content design. So I might go to the UI designer and say, how much room do we have? How much text can we have on a page, and what does that look like, and how do we line it up? We also have pacing of the dialogue, or documenting any unique animations that we might need for a side mission, something that I did on Control, or thinking about what 2D art we need in the room. If we need a specific painting in the room for the story, I might follow that up. Or how items are presented on the screen to the player. Or how interacting with a document works. So if there's a document here, is there an interact button on it? And if so, if I walk over and I interact on it, what happens? Does it pop up and I can look at it, or does it go into my inventory? That's the kind of step-by-step thing that narrative designers may think about in collaboration with other people in the team. So, as I said before, I argue that both need storytelling skills and plot structure understanding and characterization and character arcs and so on, because we work as a team at Remedy, and we all have different strengths when it comes to this stuff. But it could also be things like preparing for shoots and shoot prep for when actors come, making changes to the script on the fly, putting dialogue into our narrative design tool, all of that kind of stuff. So it can be technical. One of our narrative designers is more technical, and she has the skills to go in and put the dialogue into the game, for example. And so as we work, we learn different things as we go, but also we have strengths and weaknesses, I suppose, as a team. So a little bit about my work on Control. When I came in, one of the first things I did, I sort of summoned some courage, and also just really driven by curiosity, went to each room and said, hello, I'm Brooke, I'm from Australia, I'm new. What do you do in this room? Because I had literally worked in rooms where the whole development team was in one room, and there was probably max 12 of us. So then I was going to Remedy, where there's a room of 5 or 6 people who all just do lighting, or who all just do environment art, or who all just do level design. I'm like, this is incredible. So one of the questions I then asked was, so how does narrative affect your job? What, is there anything you want to know about the story? And then people would just say, yeah, actually, I've been lighting this area, and I'm kind of sure or know what it is, but I would like to know a little bit more about how it fits into the entire story. And I'm like, cool, okay, well, I will go find that out for you. And then, so I sort of just started doing this walking and being a walking world Bible, I suppose, which, by the way, I did have to study when I arrived, got into the World Bible of Control's got very specific world rules and things that we do and don't do to keep the narrative mood and tone. And so I read through that, and I read a lot of our inspirations that were recommended to me by the narrative team, and so we developed our own shared inspirations. And then when I went and spoke to all of these people, one thing that came up was side missions and the Ocean View Motel and Casino. So these. So I helped pace or helped work through some of the side missions. I'm not actually going to use those as an example today because there's quite a few that we could talk about. I'm going to focus on the motel and casino because it's quite a specific space, and I sort of think I can kind of condense my work enough to give you a bit of an insight into what I did here. So the Ocean View Motel and Casino, they're about 6 spaces in Control where Jessie goes in and solves a puzzle in order to get a key to open another door, and then she ends up in another area of the oldest house. And I was thinking, puzzles, transient spaces, I can do this. It's slightly similar to what I'd been working on-ish. But the point is that there was a mood and a pace for each of them. They were different. But they'd also been left in sort of placeholder mode because there were other important parts of the game that were being worked on at the time. And no one had sort of had their eye on these spaces for a while. So I suggested that I do that. So I'm going to give you a quick video of the motel so you have an idea of what I'm talking about, then we're going to dig in a little bit. So it's another video, hoping that it works. Yes. Okay, so the key is actually over there on that desk, but it's on the ceiling. So we need to turn the room up the right way. Each press of the bell opens a different room, which is something you learn in the first motel. So there's nothing unusual about that room. And then in this one, there's a painting that's upside down. So if you turn the painting up the right way, the room is now up the right way, and you can get the key. Okay, and that's a motel sequence. So, one thing about these spaces is that they're a bit of a juxtaposition between the oldest house. You don't really see much of outside in the oldest house. The game is set inside a brutalist government building, and then the Ocean View Motel and Casino is very bright. You can see outside. It's obviously in a completely different location, but it still has an interesting tone to it. It still has a mood. So let me talk about narrative mood for a minute. Narrative mood is the glue or the invisible fibers that make up a cohesive piece. So I went and did some research on, literary techniques, narrative mood, and it is composed of the setting of a story, so this includes books as well, the tone and the themes. So the motel is a transient space that implies travel. Motels are, we don't really live in them, we sort of always come and go. It's a place that implies that you're moving on, you're going somewhere. the tone is, we had a ritual-like voiceover in there actually in the E3 demo. Originally, Jessie would say incantations as she was going into the motel, but we decided to remove that and instead have this place oddly empty. So the ritual is also not on Jessie herself, but it's the actions that she performs in the space. And the themes were ritual and dream logic. And this comes from a whole sort of backstory of history from when Sam Lake first wrote the script for the VTAR, which is a visual target for the game. And Jessie was performing a ritual to, which basically was rearranging mundane objects to change the layout of the oldest house for her to move forward. But then we, over the course of development, the idea of ritual opening the way forward was put into the motel, and building shifts and control points became something else. So that's a good example of how ideas can move and change. But it still is a way that we got ritual, dream logic, and repetition into the space, which is how we talk about power and control and how we talk about mysterious forces, let's say. So we don't say magic, mythology, and like the occult. Like those things are not really a part of this world because it's more of a new weird world. So instead we play with these ideas of ritual and dream logic, which also harkens back to our inspirations like Twin Peaks and X-Files and Annihilation, just like that.